Spaceback is a creative automation platform that's designed to make it super easy for brands and marketers to distribute their social media posts and traditional banner ad placements. It's a better experience for the end consumer, better results for the brand. It's a win-win. So please check us out at spaceback.com. A quick agenda before I pass it over to Rachel. After she introduces herself, we're going to do a dive on travel, Getaway, and at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So please submit questions along the way. And with that, I'll pass it off to Rachel.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here today. I am the VP of Marketing at Getaway, as Joe said, and I've been with the company for about 3.5 years, which is crazy. It really has flown by. In that time, we went from 3 outposts to 15 all across the country. And the marketing team has grown from 1 to about 10, which is also really exciting. And under marketing, we have growth and brand and graphic design. So kind of our own little internal studio, if you will.
Awesome, that's great. Definitely looking forward to learning more about that. Sounds like you've had a great couple of years.
Yeah.
Before we dive in, let's quick couple icebreakers, since I'm kind of in the social media space and we all will pass through that with the marketing. What is another travel brand or company that you kind of follow on social media? Sort of what platform, and what do you like about that company, and why do you follow on?
Honestly, every single time before I book a trip, I go to tablet hotels, the OTA. I don't necessarily book on tablet, but I always use it for my discovery platform, and their social media always drives me as well into, they just have such high design boutique hotels and just exactly the way that I want to travel. So
awesome. That's a good tip for all of us. So thank you for sharing that with us from an industry expert. What about upcoming travel plans? Anything exciting on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
I have a lot that I'm looking forward to. I'm actually going to Philadelphia next weekend, so not very far, but we're going to go to a baseball game and go to some other museums. And I have a big trip to Greece planned this summer.
All right, that's awesome. I look forward to hearing about that. I'm still trying to lock in my travel plans. I think prior to this, one of the panelists said that the kind of prices are going up, so everybody should start looking into that. Looks like you're planned ahead, which is good.
I've planned as far as my Thanksgiving trip, so I am eager to be traveling.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Rachel, I know that I think there may be a video. I'm not sure if we want to cue that up going into kick things off, or is it?
Let's do it now. I think it's great to kind of get a visual understanding of what Getaway is instead of just me talking about it.
Great.
Your behavior is not something that can be separated from the behavior of the world around you. The external world is your own body extended. Each one of us are what you might call symptoms of the state of the universe as a whole. And I and my environment, you and your environment, are explicitly as different could be. But implicitly, you go together. Fundamentally and forever, that which you really are is the whole of being.
So I think this video really shows and encapsulates what Getaway is. It's simple. It's well designed. It's beautiful. It's in nature. It is not about, itineraries of all the places you have to go and hit and the maps that go along with it and everything you're going to do on your trip. It's just about getting into nature and unplugging and maybe exploring some nearby trails, but really just having a fire and disconnecting. All of our cabins have those big picture windows. Some of you may have seen them on Instagram. I hear that a lot. But notably, we have no TVs, no Wi-Fi, we have cell phone lock boxes. So we're really encouraging our guests to disconnect. And some of the biggest differentiators are our guests travel there by car, so road trips and super dog friendly. Our cabins are naturally socially distanced, which is not a phrase I ever thought I would say 15 months ago. But all of our guests have their own private space. There's no communal spaces. There's never been a check-in or check-out desk. It's really about having your own little refuge. And another notable thing is that in 2020, we had nearly 100% occupancy, which I know is a little unique in the travel space. And prior to COVID, we were about 95% occupied since launch. So.
Awesome. I wish I could do a show of hands because I personally wasn't familiar with Getaway prior to this, but it seems a little bit more of a, maybe this is the wrong description, but sort of non-traditional, right? Like the talk prior to this, people are thinking about getting on planes, people are thinking travel, they're thinking places they've already been. Getaway fills maybe a different niche or a different consumer need. What I want you touched on a little bit of that and what the experience is like. Maybe from like a company standpoint, I'd love to hear about like maybe a little bit of history of the company, maybe the brand values, and then also what brought you to Getaway.
Yeah. So we like to think about Getaway as being like a health and wellness hospitality company. So a little different than just hospitality. There's really a lot of that practice and mindfulness that is a part of going to Getaway and putting your devices down and just connecting with the person that you're with. The company was started in 2015 by John Staff, who is our founder and CEO. And after a few startup jobs at, I think, his late 20s, he was already feeling really burnt out. And he grew up in northern Minnesota and was just like, really wanted to get back into the woods. So built one of these for himself and immediately just had so much interest and realized that, wow, like getting into nature is so restorative and something that so many people want to do. So from that, we've grown over the last 5 or 6 years from 3 cabins to just about 600. And we're outside of 15 major cities. All of the Getaway outposts is what we call our kind of collections of cabins are within 2 hours of major cities. And yeah, I think you asked about brand pillars, right?
Yeah, just, yeah.
Okay. So our brand pillars are that we believe in free time. We believe that joy is found when we slow down and wander and marvel at the world. We believe that nature is for everyone. This one's really important to us. We think that nature is a restorative refuge that should be welcome to all people. And we believe in strengthening our relationships, so nurturing our connection to ourselves and others. So really, if you boil it down, it comes down to the 3 things that you need are time and nature and love.
That's awesome. I know you mentioned health and wellness, which I think is, so other travel destinations talk about that, but I think, like you said, there's something really unique about making free time. I can't remember exactly how you said that, but that's something that like it's caught me as really unique to your offering.
Yeah, and reading surveys and 75% of us are craving more time outside, and 41% of Americans say they don't have enough time to do the things that they want to do. So while we're kind of circling around this idea of free time the last few years, I'd say in the last few months in 2021, we've really laser focused like, oh, that's exactly what it is. We believe the world's become too busy and too noisy and too connected. And what we really think we're in the mission of is making space in the world for more free time.
So I think that, we talked about planning ahead, planning for travel, airlines, all this stuff. You guys have sort of a different approach because you're located close to cities. So you don't have to plan an airline ticket. You can find accommodations. A couple questions on that is sort of how far in advance do you have to book? You mentioned you guys are pretty sold out. So maybe we're late on the game here, but there is something very unique about some degree of spontaneity with this as well.
Yeah, that's a big internal struggle for us is our, ideal is it could be a Thursday and at 1 o'clock, you're like, oh, I'm just so stressed. I got to get out of here. And by 3 o'clock, you could be checking into a cabin. But we have a lot of demand and are really working on having our supply match that. So I recommend if I have friends that want to book for weekends, probably 2 to 3 months in advance, but weekdays you can usually find current month.
All right, that's helpful. I'm definitely we talked about this prior, but definitely going to check you all out. In fact, I probably would have done this from a Getaway, except like you said, no Wi-Fi, so couldn't do that.
No Wi-Fi.
I can personally vouch. I think all of us have. I just got back actually from the Grand Canyon, 9 days on the river, no cell phone, no Wi-Fi. I think we all recognize like the importance of that. I think even though we know it, sometimes it's hard to do that. What's some of the kind of customer experiences and positive feedback and anything from that perspective that you can share with us?
We honestly just received the most heartfelt feedback from our guests. The stories that they send to us are like just stop you in your tracks. And one of the norms as a company is every morning when we sign online, everyone reads every piece of guest feedback that we received overnight, which now that we have 15 outposts takes a little longer than it used to, but it's such an important practice. And I wanted to share a note that we got from a guy named Jason who came to our Houston outpost with his partner. And I wanted to share it because I thought what he wrote is just the perfect example of what we're all about. So he said, in the morning, we had coffee and talked on a level we hadn't done in years. No distractions, just able to focus on being present with each other. We took 1 or 2 short naps in the cozy bed, plucked around on our guitar, and just enjoyed a lazy day. We returned afterwards full of energy and envisioned how we might bring some of that getaway feel to our daily life. We can't wait for the next one. So it's just a perfect example of what we want to bring into the world. Free time to do what you want, to reflect, to spend time connecting with your partner, to talk, to read, to nap, to hike, and just be.
There's definitely something that resonates from, like you said, creating space for free time and the ability to sort of let your mind wander and your relationships kind of grow and go where they may, instead of like the constant time pressure. So that was definitely connected a chord with me.
And we kind of like to think of Getaway as more of a practice than a vacation. So, you might go once and have this amazing experience, but if you add it into your wellness routine and maybe go once a quarter, or twice a year, or even every year you go this first weekend in January, and that's your weekend that you go and talk about your intentions for the year. Just kind of creating more thought around that and really setting aside time to be in nature and disconnect and connect with yourself or with your others. Or we hear from a lot of parents that it's the only time they see their kids not looking down at screens and sitting around campfires, teaching them how to make s'mores and talking about memories they had growing up. So
It's just definitely so hard to make space these days. I think that you're right there. There's kind of this micro travel, micro vacation, almost like creating more space for this. I've seen people's like sort of obviously patterns change over the last year. And it definitely seems like there could be like sort of a lot of repeat trips to one of these getaways.
definitely.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Well, let's see. Okay, let's think through some other things here from just an overall travel perspective and sort of some of the changes maybe that you've seen, some of the changes in consumer mindset maybe over the last year. I know you said you guys are all fully booked out. Do you expect that to continue to grow? Have you noticed anything interesting to share with us on how things are changing?
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest things was we never really talked about safety before. Sometimes we would hear concerns from guests of, oh, is it safe? Does it lock? Is there a phone? Especially from some of our solo female travelers, we'd hear that. But it changed where, in every single message we were putting out, there was a value prop around safety, and a different type of safety than how's the door locked and can I reach out to someone if I need help? So that was really interesting and something that we're still doing. We still have nano bars on our website that talk about cleanliness and safety. We're really fortunate that we didn't really have to change our operations. You always checked yourself into your cabin. There's no communal spaces, like I said. You always have your own space. It's outside. You don't come into contact with any of our staff. It's really, a place where you don't have to have small talk. You can just go. But we've also, we've really seen a strong desire from people to travel and get away. So once we kind of nailed that safety front, people were just itching to get out of their houses and off Zoom and get outside. And we think, like I said, we were really popular before COVID, but after this, I think we opened up to a different guest and a different customer. People that maybe rediscovered road trips they hadn't been on one since they were a kid, or rediscovered nature, those mini vacations like you were talking about. Like, wow, the benefits of spending 2 days disconnected is just as amazing as a full week-long vacation. So
You all were definitely ahead of the curve, I guess you could say, from the standpoint I've been reading a little bit about smaller group travel versus large group travel, right? Getting outdoors, sort of the social distancing. I mean, all of this is pretty much built into what you had kind of going into this, which I think not only the just emotional, spiritual wellness, but everything else that we've been dealing with as a society recently. So that's huge.
yeah, we were really lucky in a really challenging time for a lot of people. So
Do you see um, a sort of a concern with some of the, I don't want to, spend too much time. We definitely can't talk about kind of some of this pandemic specifics, but like I said, do you see something in your consumers impacting that? Or like I said, it seems like you're a little bit of a step away from that. So it's sort of an escape from that. What are you seeing from some of your customers?
We're seeing a bit of a broadening of our customer, but also still our core guest knows that, okay, if I want to go to Getaway, I need to book in advance. So we're still seeing those core guests coming as well. We've expanded into 6 new markets during the pandemic. So that's been really interesting, or maybe even 7, wow. Just going into completely new states and new parts of the country. And we just opened outside of Chicago in Michigan, and that was our biggest opening to date. We just opened in Nashville 2 weeks ago. So really just continuing to open up Getaway to more people and continuing to see that high demand and interest, which has been great.
What are some, can you let us know some more states or maybe cities that are coming, just so people can kind of anticipate and plan for that?
Yes, I'm trying to think of what I'm allowed to say.
Okay. Put me on the spot, sorry.
I know that Seattle is one that we are already talking about. And I think that might be all I'm allowed to say, but stay tuned because we have about 5 more announcements coming up.
Awesome, for sure. What about like from a marketing standpoint? Obviously the travel aspect is awesome. Super excited about that. But from a marketing standpoint, maybe you can tell us about some of, definitely touch over the last year, maybe some things that changed and how you reach the consumer. Obviously we're coming out of that. And just what you anticipate going forward. What of those tactics and strategies will stay the same and what will maybe change?
Yeah, so we're a little unique in the travel space. I like to say we're almost like a D2C hospitality company. And part of that's probably due to my background in D2Cs, but also that's, the way John set it up. All of our guests book directly with us. We've never worked with a third-party OTA and we don't plan on it. It really is so important to us that, Getaway is such a meaningful, deep experience that we really want to have a direct relationship with our guests, and we want to know what they're looking for. We want to know why they're coming. During our booking flow, there's prompts about why they're coming, and we really make sure to tailor the experience and the content towards them. So we really take that mindset through all of our marketing. We have about 12 different channels that we market on. Say like your classic D2C channels that are all about driving both awareness but also bookings. So we have paid social is a really big one for us, and email. We have a huge email program, affiliate and influencer, referral. We have a blog, organic social. So really within each of those channels, we have a different channel manager. So that, as I said up at the top, the team is organized into brand, growth, and graphic design. And they all worked very closely together, but kind of the more organic channels sit under the brand umbrella, where more of the booking channels sit under the growth umbrella.
Got it. What about, is there anything maybe that you have tried that has not worked?
We famously did a programmatic direct mail campaign. So kind of your classic mailer that you get from your Caspers and your Allbirds of the world. And it had about $2,000.
In the physical mail?
Yes, physical mail, like those trifolds. And the way the programmatic mail works now is you can target similar to how you target someone on Facebook. So they'll use the same pixels to know where you've gone, and then you'll send a direct mailer. And it had about a $2,000 CPA, so that was a pretty big fail for us. But we shifted, and now we do direct mail strategy that's more of a rebooking or a win-back strategy, where within 30 days of checking out, you'll receive a handwritten postcard, like a robot hand, but handwritten postcard with a promo code encouraging you to come back. And we see much higher successes there.
I get that, especially with that positive experience and people coming back and feeling refreshed. Yeah. That is really interesting about the kind of direct mail pieces. I'm sure there's certain industries that works for. Like I hadn't even really, thought about that channel recently, but obviously didn't work for you all this time. But
no.
Yeah, I mean, you experimented, right? You have to try those.
Yeah, we're always trying new things, and part of our paid budget every month goes to experimentation. Because I think diversifying your channel mix is so important. So it's okay if we have some falls and some fails, and we, are always trying new things. So
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. Definitely experimentation. And as things change and kind of markets change and people's behaviors, some things that didn't work sometimes may work or return better results. So
Totally.
uh, that's important for sure. I'm interested in, because of the space I'm in, a little bit kind of influencer marketing. Obviously, we all know that's a big thing that's growing. Maybe you could share with us a little bit about how you approach that. Do
Yeah.
you use big influencers, small influencers? How even the kind of the communication and kind of creative approval and like just any thoughts on that going forward? That's something I'd love to touch on a little bit.
Absolutely. So we kind of have almost a influencer affiliate hybrid model. So we don't pay influencers. I don't think we ever have, but we give free trips in exchange. And part of what they're exchanging is we create contracts where they're agreeing to a set number of posts with a unique promo code. And for some of our larger influencers, it's more closer to a traditional affiliate model where they will get a rev share. We host a few hundred, about 300 or 400 influencers a year across our properties. We save about 1% of nights at every location per month for influencers. We also have an artist fellowship program, and that's very different than the influencer program, and that's more, we host artists of all kinds, so ceramicists, chefs, photographers, illustrators, a lot of cartoonists from the New York Times or the New Yorker. We always try to reach out to them, and they come and they create content for us. They don't post any codes to their audience, and we then feature and highlight their content across our blog and our social in a way to kind of share who the creators are within our community.
What's your Instagram handle, just so everybody can follow it?
It's Getaway House.
Getaway House. Okay, I definitely want to check that out for sure.
We also only use assets that come in through influencers, artists, or UGC. I think we've done in my 3.5 years like 2 campaigns where we've taken photos, and they've just never been as authentic as what we're getting from our audience. So we really rely heavily on using all of these different people that are coming, but also our guests themselves for asset generation.
There's definitely we've noticed a shift more toward authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there can be sort of a contrived authenticity that's a little bit overproduced, but it definitely seems like the general public is more accepting of true authenticity, and it doesn't have to be the perfect asset or image, right? They want to know that it's real. Is that something that you're kind of seeing as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's such a because the experience is so important to so many people. If we did something that wasn't authentic, I think we would just see like backlash. So it's really important to us to know what our guest wants and pay attention to that, and be sure we're doing that, whether that's in our messaging, the types of campaigns we're creating, and then also the images that we're showing.
What about, you mentioned influencers, real quick follow-up question on that, sort of affiliate program, or they have these codes or you trade nights. What about from like an engagement standpoint? So obviously probably your key metric is booking, but do you care about the engagement that those posts get? Do you factor that into it? So is it all just nights booking, or how are you evaluating that? Because that's kind of can always be the challenge for a marketer.
Definitely. I mean, we pay attention up front and use lots of different tools and plugins to figure out, okay, are these real followers or are these bot followers? What's their engagement? So we pay a lot of attention to that up front. On every single post that we post ourselves on social, we talk about engagement. We also talk about saves. This has been a big metric for us recently. Saves, yeah. And just seeing these huge spikes where we had a post we put up on every Wednesday. We do Wellness Wednesdays where we share different tips. And I think this week's had about 750 likes, but 450 saves.
Wow.
Which is so interesting, that like deep level of engagement that we're seeing of someone saying, this is a value to me and I want to come back to this later. So we really pay attention to and talk across all metrics of engagement.
I have personally started using saves specifically for travel. So I'd be curious. I'd be curious if that's common, or all the different ways people use saves, but that's another conversation, but that makes sense. Everyone, just want to say, please submit some questions. We'll probably start doing some Q&A here in the next like 5 to 10 minutes. So please submit questions, travel related, getaway related, marketing related for Rachel. Rachel, what are some do you have any recommendations for travelers in general? And this might be, how to get the best out of your getaway experience, or even beyond that, maybe like location agnostic, just tips that you've gleaned.
Yeah, I think as I think about travel and as I talk about it so much with my friends right now, it's what's travel look like as we're coming out of uh, COVID, and a lot of us are post-vaccination. And I think the conversations I've been having that are so interesting are just, doing what's right for you. For some people, they might be comfortable to fly, and for others, they might still be thinking about road trips as a way to ease back into travel and more of these few nights away to break up periods of intensity and not, 2 weeks to Europe. But also one thing that I found, I think I said, is I've planned my trips all the way through to November. So it's really tempting to do that. And I'm super guilty of it, but I'm also trying to keep in mind that some of my favorite trips aren't the ones that I've, created intense spreadsheets and maps and all the things I want to do and itineraries. Some of my favorite moments are just exploring and not over planning. So while it's tempting, I really recommend people keep that in mind.
I think that's a good reminder. I mean, there's such a tendency to pursue experiences, and like the common mindset of an experience is this location, this destination, checking this off the list, getting this photo. And again, this is kind of the full circle with Getaway, but it's a very strong experience, but like that non-traditional experience of creating that time and that space. And that's something that I think that maybe more people coming out of the pandemic would, there's been some downtime, different types of travel, but really understanding the value of space as we're all kind of enclosed over the last 12 months.
Totally.
A couple things here. Revenge travel. Revenge travel, is that a term? Are you familiar with that term? It's something I've started popping up. All right, well, I was curious your opinion on it. I guess it's this idea that there's a lot of pent up demand, and it's like people are just going to go crazy once they can get out. So I was just curious if you had an opinion on that, but we can.
I thought it was more of like revenge dating or something. Like you have a breakup and you want to go on a travel and show all your photos on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the revenge side gets a little crazy, but it's a term that's, I guess, been popping up a little bit. And then I've been reading about a little bit people sort of wanting to kind of return to familiar places. So there's a couple things I've been reading, sort of like this kind of luxury travel, like, hey, if you're going to go international and you're going to have to make the effort, vaccines, and go through this, let's do a little bit more, let's stay a little longer. And then there's kind of this idea of maybe returning to like a Disney World or a Disneyland or these places that are familiar. Are you seeing any kind of data come in on sort of how people are perceiving different types of experiences or different types of vacations coming out of this? Or
we're not seeing any slowdown. I mean, we are still year over year, we're continuing to see that we're up month over month. So I think that while people, and I said myself, are still planning these bigger trips, I think we're also all still super connected. We're still on Zooms all day long. I think this is my 4th hour of the day on Zoom. So I think we still also are trying to find these little weekend escapes. I know I'm taking one next weekend and then one the following weekend after that. So still keeping in mind these like short periods to step away from our homes and our home offices and our computers and everything that we're tethered to.
Yeah, I was kind of reviewing some of these things about, some of the key things you all do: nature, free time, sort of, you have lock boxes for your phones, correct, at the locations?
Yeah.
Is that,
yep.
Just when I came back from my trip, I mean, didn't really have any music, anything. Like I put music onto my place. I was like, that's a little loud. There is something about, I don't think we can emphasize this enough, but the nature aspect and the natural sounds of that, and sort of technology, not just connectedness, but just like everything that brings into our headspace. So that's a huge, again, differentiator, I think, over Getaway, over some other forms of travel. Okay, I think we're going to shift gears here, Rachel, for a second. We're going to look at a couple Q&As here. So these are going to be off the cuff. So feel free to pass. We'll see how these go. Okay, we've got a question here. What % is programmatic media investment, and how is it used? I think that's as opposed to maybe, I'm guessing maybe over social, so like sort of maybe programmatic display. I don't want to slice and dice this.
We 0%. We don't do programmatic. We've done it a little in the past here and there, and it's just never had the same ROI that we're able to achieve on paid social, excuse me. So right now we're not using it. We're rolling out a small test on podcast right now. So I guess that would maybe some would say that would fall under programmatic, but the majority of it really is paid social.
What about connected TV, anything like sort of video streaming, tapped into that yet? No.
No, we have not. I think we're since we're still only outside of 15 cities, and we're still, I think this is the year where we will start to talk about this year and next year, like what does a DRTV campaign look like?
Okay, cool. Well, we look forward to that. Maybe you'll have to come back and share with us the results of that. That is actually something that'd be awesome. I'm sure a lot of people come back to Brand Innovators, but sort of follow-ups after the fact, that'd be really awesome. Okay, how has the pandemic affected your partnership with other brands? Do you partner with other brands at all? Or?
We do. It's been so interesting. We've gotten so much inbound interest from brands that have physical spaces or bring their communities together, and that want to use our socially distanced outposts as a way to do that. So last summer, we partnered with Soho House at 5 of our properties, and they held socially distanced weekends for their members, where they were able to come and go on hikes and kind of do things, but spaced out. Everyone ate their own meals with their own cabins, so kind of a way to still engage with the Soho House community, but not be in close physical proximity. And I'd say that was kind of the beginning of the kickoff of a lot of brands reaching out to us, wanting to find ways to partner and activate at our outposts. So we have a lot more exciting things coming down the pipeline.
All right, thank you for that. A quick influencer question that I think came in earlier I missed real quickly is, you talked about authenticity, so this might overlap with that, but how do you identify who's the right fit?
So we have all of our channels pretty much have a channel manager. So the woman that runs our influencer and affiliate program is really in charge of this and just making sure that they're authentic to Getaway. They're talking about things that we care about. They have the similar values to us. Nature is for everyone is an important one. We want to make sure they're inclusive. We want to make sure that they're showing different points of view. So
there's a couple on here. I'm sorry, I'm playing catch up. How important is influencer marketing within kind of all of your strategy? Is it like kind of a pillar there? Is it something you're continuing to grow? Where does that stack up in the ranking?
It's something we're continuing to grow. So it doesn't compare to a paid social and an email and even the blog, but it's certainly continuing to grow, and it has almost like a waterfall effect. It has the assets that I was talking about, so it also gives us access to a lot of great assets, and we're continuing to invest in it and grow it every single quarter.
What about so this is kind of always a question from like a creative standpoint is how important is the data behind the influencer marketing? And does the metrics drive the messaging? Like, are you kind of always testing the messaging and like evaluating that and trying to shape that more? Or do you let it be a little bit more organic?
When it comes to influencer, we let it be really organic because, like I said, everything is about authenticity for us. So we want the influencer to be talking, like we don't tell them what to post. We say, might give ideas of these are things we'd like you to talk about, or these are things we don't. But at the end of the day, like we want them to post what feels right for them and their audience. However, on paid social and organic social, we kind of use those as testing grounds for messaging. So we're able to kind of really quickly see what are people engaging with, what are they excited by, what are they responding to, and then can roll that out across all of our other channels.
That's cool. That makes a ton of sense from a sort of test. There's a huge opportunity to do some quick testing and just evaluating. Oh, yeah. So that's important. Question, in general, college students are coming back in full force, travel is opening up. Where do you all stand with college students as a marketing channel?
So we have a bunch of different discounts for different interest groups. The first one we ever launched was college students back when we only had 3 locations, and that was Boston, New York, and DC. And our Boston property just saw so many different college students. So we have that 15% off discount for college students. We've done all sorts of different things marketing to them, from advertising in student newspapers. We have different language and different ad sets that we serve to college students. We've worked with college influencers. So definitely continue to do that.
Okay, awesome, very helpful. So, kind of a marketing, I guess, a term that people sometimes use is surprise and delight for a consumer's experience. Is there how do you guys think about that? What do you do to kind of seek to enhance that? And anything you can talk about in that arena would be great.
That's so important to us. So as I was saying, in our booking flow, we have prompts about why you're escaping. So when you come to your cabin and you check in, it might say, Joe, welcome to Getaway. we're so happy to have you here. We heard that you had just talked about how you spent 2 weeks writing a book. We hope you can unplug. So like really tying back to what those are. If it's someone's birthday, we'll give them a little treat. If it's, we see so many engagements, we'll, try to support through that. We also offer give all of our guests s'mores kits, which are free, but kind of in that note card it says like the s'mores are on us. And then for our pets, we also have pet s'mores kits that are dog-friendly s'mores. So that is another way we really we hear lots of feedback from dog parents about how delightful they found this to be.
So that is something that I've seen a lot of people who have new pets and like to travel with their pets, and obviously drivability is huge, and so
yes.
You all cater to that. That's awesome. One quick thing on that kind of surprising delight. So you actually have things when they show up. You've got like a card, or
Yep.
there's actual physical things. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
That's super cool. What about last thing in relation to this? I think we are winding down, but you mentioned sort of follow-up. So that's sort of you kind of do this quote unquote onboarding and sort of a questionnaire, and sort of sounds like really trying to help prep people for this time, because I think that if you can go into it with that mindset and whatever you all can do to help along the way, and then maybe there's kind of like a post trip you mentioned a little bit. The original question was kind of the post trip, but maybe you can talk about sort of that prep again. You mentioned that questionnaire, but just even more abstractly, if it's not specific, but does that make sense from like how to help people get the most out of those few days there?
Absolutely. We're like obsessed with our pre and post stay flow, and are actually working on it all quarter. So I've been in lots of meetings about that, both pre-stay, preparing the guest what to pack, answering those questions, but also telling them don't plan too much. Here's a hike you can do, but resist the temptation. And then post-stay, it's all about what did they enjoy, what do they want to change. So much from the linens to the way we build our cabins, everything has been impacted by this amazing feedback we get from our guests. So we really listen to all of it and take it to heart.
What is before we jump, what is one piece of customer feedback that you all have maybe were surprised by, or just implemented? Like you said, there's a number of things. Give us just one example.
We have these those old timey camp mugs, those tin ones. We thought they were so cute. They were so on brand. And then we were hearing people say they were burning their fingers and burning their lips. And we had just spent all this money buying them for all 3 outposts, and pretty quickly pulled them out and put in more of like an insulated camp mug. So that was kind of the first one that came to mind.
Awesome. You don't always get it right, but customers always give that feedback. Yep. So that's awesome. Well, I think that's all we have here today. Ariel, before we pass it off to you, Rachel, any last messages for people, from a marketing perspective, from a travel perspective? I mean, this time has been amazing. Thank you so much. You've got a wealth of knowledge. So the floor is for you before we close out.
I'd say just get to know your guest, collect as much information as you can, and really listen to them and show them empathy and care. That's all people want, right?
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I love that. Thank you so much. What a great way to end this session. Thank you, Joe. And thank you again, Rachel, for sharing your knowledge and insight with all of us. It was so appreciated.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
All right. Well, with that, I will welcome our next 2 speakers to the stage.